beat your disease.
Has there ever been a moment, like something really bad that happened to you that would change your life forever?
Oh, you mean like a death in the family or like a car accident, something like that?
Yeah, stuff like that. But I was thinking of like a medical diagnosis.
Yeah, I know a guy named Adam Scheuer. He was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is a really debilitating digestive tract disease. And he was just a normal guy with a great family. He had just gotten married. He had a lot of great hobbies. And then he was diagnosed with this disease. But instead of feeling down on himself or getting to a state of depression, he decided to take his disease and turn it into a positive. He started a website that's now pretty successful called ihaveuc.com. He's written some ebooks, and he can really show us how you can take something really horrible and turn it into a positive. Risk here with Vincent D'Iso, and we're going to be talking to Adam Scheuer. Adam, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me here.
So let's get right into it. What is ulcerative colitis?
UC, ulcerative colitis, it is one of the inflammatory bowel diseases, and it is, some of it's not 100% known, but the idea is that it's an autoimmune disease and it affects the immune system, and it affects the colon, so the final tailpipe that everybody has. And some kind of ideas that you could take from this is the immune system is attacking itself in a way. So autoimmune diseases, often you have the immune system working in overdrive, where it starts seeing invaders from the outside and white blood cells get into the attack mode. And with UC, they are attacking different parts of the colon or different things that are happening in there, which end up cutting the colon open and causing what they call small ulcers. Mm-hmm. And this turns to different types of symptoms such as bleeding, cramping, all sorts of things.
Is that hereditary? Is that something that could just happen to anybody?
It's a good question. It is hereditary. It does run in families. And not saying that if your parents or your brother or your sister has UC, you're going to have it, but the studies and so forth show that there's higher prevalence, or let's say maybe a higher chance, not an extreme higher chance. But then on the other hand, there's also people that come down with UC that don't have any family history whatsoever, or maybe they don't have any diagnosed family history.
And how this is part of the inflammatory bowel disease family, I guess you could say. So I know that there are some others that fall under IBD, right?
Correct. And the big or the well-known other disease is called Crohn's disease, which was named after Dr. Crohn, who was in New York City. And he actually diagnosed my uncle with, surprisingly, ulcerative colitis. It wasn't until my uncle had surgery, this is quite a few years ago, several decades ago, that they realized, well, actually, you have Crohn's disease. So, yeah, Crohn's disease would be the main other disease. There's some other, let's say, variations, if you will. A lot of people have heard of celiac disease. That's kind of thrown into the mix as well.
Is that gluten related?
Exactly. A lot of people that have celiac disease. I'm not super familiar with celiac disease, but a lot of them equate it with the gluten intolerance.
And so take us through your life before you were diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Like, what was your life like?
Well, let's see. That's going back over 10 years. So I was diagnosed October 2nd, 2008. So almost 10 years, let's say. Anyways, my life before, I think I was pretty active, normal life. Mm-hmm. I think I've always been on the type A personality role for quite some time, but I was pretty athletic, did quite a bit of working out. I lived in several different places. I'm born and grew up in the Silicon Valley Bay Area, born at Stanford Hospital in 1979.
Nice.
And then I lived down over in Colorado, went to university for 4 years, lived down in Santa Barbara, was very active, played lots of sports, played soccer, played golf, did a lot of baseball growing up. And, as far as my disease before I was diagnosed, I definitely do remember having quite a bit of stomach ache, strange situations where I'm running off to the bathroom after meals and not being able to figure this out and actually just thinking it was normal. So
how long did that last, those symptoms?
Well, it's a great question. It's hard to pinpoint exactly when things started. And that's the question everyone asks themselves, especially once you're diagnosed. But I can remember many years, probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years before being diagnosed, using the restroom more than probably an average person. I definitely had a lot of stomach aches growing up when I was little, middle school. Didn't think too much of it, would come and go. Wasn't easy to pinpoint why, when's this stuff happening. But yeah, many years.
Wow. So yeah, take us through the process of like really paying attention to your symptoms, and when you realize that it was okay, this is a problem that I need to really get checked out.
I can remember exactly when this happened, even though it was 10 plus years ago, or nearly 10 years ago now. So I had just got married, and I was married in April 19th, 2007. And I moved back to California, where I'm from, and I started to become very weak. I was going to the bathroom in the restroom probably 10 plus times a day, taking a poop or something like that. And I started noticing blood for many months before this moment I'm going to tell you about. But anyways, the symptoms were cramping, urgency, needing to, run out of my desk at work, and sometimes literally run.
Like immediately, like, okay.
Immediately. Like there's no waiting around for another 10, 20 minutes or waiting through this meeting or doing another phone call or whatever. It's time to get to the bathroom. Going into the bathroom and sometimes seeing nothing but, gassy blood flying out. And not, gallons of blood. I'm talking like little specks of blood, and seeing the white linoleum toilet bowl with little red dots all over the place, thinking, geez, sometimes even a bit more than that. And then toilet paper, looking at that and seeing it covered in bright red, and that's blood. So that was going on for quite some time, several weeks, months. But it got to a point where when you're losing blood, you can get anemic, and you start getting tired, and you don't have the energy that a normal person has. It's as simple as that. So I remember telling my wife, my just got married a few months before wife, hey, when I'm going to the bathroom, and she knows I'm going there because I'm going there all the time for quite some time, I'm bleeding. And then she looked at me and she said, are you serious? That's not normal. And I started thinking this was almost normal. So we went to the urgent care, talked to the folks there, and that's what got the ball rolling towards my diagnosis.
What was going through your head when they told you that?
Well, initially at the urgent care, this is not something that you're taught. People don't tell you how to go about getting from symptoms like this to getting a diagnosis. So this is all new to me, even though my uncle had gone through a lot of the exact same things 35 years earlier. But what was going through my head was, I must have some ulcer or maybe some bacteria. I'd done a lot of traveling. I'd done, big, long 2-month bike rides in Croatia, same type of thing down in Argentina, and been all over the world type of stuff. Maybe I picked something funny up, some bacteria, I don't know, some drug, give me some antibiotics. That'll fix
You were
this.
looking for something curable.
Yeah, exactly.
Not something that was going to change your life
I thought
forever.
this was just some bump in the road that I had never solved.
Right.
Go to the doctor,
Get it solved.
fix the problem. So the urgent care, they told me, no, you need to get a colonoscopy. I'd never heard that word, had some ideas, didn't know. But yeah, that was the next step, was to go and get a colonoscopy, because they told me that they're not sure what this is. It could be a number of things, but that's the best step. Talk to a gastroenterologist doctor a doctor that specializes in GI or gastro issues.
So step number 1, okay, so you probably went to the colonoscopy, right?
Step number 1 was getting an appointment.
Okay.
Waiting a few days. I remember going in for a consultation with the gastro doctor. This was at Stanford, part of the Stanford medical system, which is an excellent medical system. But
it's a very good hospital.
It's a great place. It's a well-known spot and so forth. It's actually the hospital where I was born as well. So anyways, I go in and meet with the gastro doctor, and I'm not used to being in a room where you're trying to, you've got some crazy thing that you've been dealing with, and this little doctor guy hopefully is going to be able to help you out. And he explains a little bit what the procedure is about, but it's hard to understand and pick this stuff up. And then there was finally some talk about any family history. Brought that up, had never come up before. And so I'm guessing in his eyes, he's like, okay, this is something serious here. Let's make sure we get this thing scheduled soon. A few days later, had a colonoscopy. But it's a process. Colonoscopy is basically, I tell people it's like a snake. It's going up your butt. It's got a camera on the end of it, and it's flexible, and it goes quite a ways up. Think of it as going up about 3 feet. And anyways, they're trying to see what's going on inside, and at the end of it can kind of take a little snip. It's a biopsy, and it takes several from different locations. It's kind of amazing how that all happens, and then pathologist looks through that. But before you get to the colonoscopy, you have to do a preparation, and you have to clean out your system, because imagine you don't want a camera going up there if it's filled with poop and God knows what, right?
Right.
You're not going to see too much, right?
That makes sense.
You might not see too much. So you get a big solution. It's about a gallon or 3-4 liters, call it that you drink the night before.
3 or 4 liters right before you go to bed.
You don't want to do this. Try to go to bed because you won't
3 or 4 liters.
You won't be sleeping. So you start drinking this solution, and I forget exactly, but I want to say a half an hour or 45 minutes after I started taking my first, glass, you're just going to the bathroom, drinking more, going, and it's flushing you out very much to the point where finally, and I didn't finish the whole thing I was supposed to drink because it was just nasty. You're pooping out water, it's nothing, and you're getting it all cleaned out for the camera. So, that's the preparation, colonoscopy prep. Next day, morning, go into the colonoscopy center, and I had a colonoscopy, and not everyone has this, where I was knocked out cold. So I get the IV in, you get medications in there, and I remember laying down in the gown, and I'd never been knocked out before, maybe for my wisdom teeth, but I don't remember that. And then came in, I'm with some nurses, then comes in the gastro doctor, and I was already lying down, and he simply told me to count to 10, and before I was at 10, I was out. The next thing I knew, I wake up in a waiting room, and I'm in kind of like a wheelchair, and I'm feeling all like fuzzy, and feels like I'm high off of something. And not having any pain or anything. And I remember my mom was there, my wife, and the doctor had given them a piece of paper. And there's also back-to-back, a lot of the medical systems, you've got these colonoscopy centers is, you're in line, there's people coming in and getting this procedure done, so there's nothing too personal about it. And we get out to the car. I don't really remember what was said in there, but it was pretty much, this ain't going away. And there was a prescription from the doctor to go and get some pills. So the pills were prednisone, which is a corticosteroid, extremely common. It's been out for many, 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 many years.
Wait, so the doctor told you flat out then that you have ulcerative colitis, or how did that diagnosis
I don't even remember because I was a bit out of it, but I believe that he told family that were there, because you can't drive a car after this. They will not let you drive a car. It takes some time for the medications from putting you to sleep to wear out.
But basically after the colonoscopy, that's when you were diagnosed.
Exactly. It's something on a visual, a trained doctor, a trained gastroenterologist, when they see the perforations and tons and tons of little red spots all over the colon. It should be, nice and pink, not having all these little kind of red spots all over it, which mine was. And I had what's called pancolitis, which is the entire colon inflamed. Some people have different sections inflamed. For me, it was the whole thing, and it was severe. So it was not, it was the least ideal.
Now, that medicine that they gave you, was that designed to heal the inside, like the whole colon?
Well,
or what was the purpose of that medicine?
Steroids, they're an immune suppressant, right? So they are something that will kind of slow down, let's say, your immune system and the immune response, and an anti-inflammatory type of drug. These little innocent-looking white pills, they're very, very strong, and there's a lot of nasty side effects from these pills, which I learned about and experienced.
Such as?
But such as your teeth. You start feeling like you have a lot of cavities, and if you take steroids for a long period of time, it decreases your bone density, get osteoporosis, messes with, the whole.
Well, it's a hormone, right? Or is it different?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a hormone or not. It's just it really jerks around with your immune response. Also, cortisone is something that we produce naturally, right? And when you start taking steroids, and cortisone is something where, when the bear comes charging at you, or the lion in the jungle, gives you this, it's part of this adrenaline cortisone boost, allows you to kind of get away and deal with certain things. But when you start taking steroids, your body starts producing less of it naturally. And a big problem that people come, it's kind of a roundabout answer to your question, is when people get off steroids, or taper, what they call it, you have to do it in a special way for your own individual body. There's no one-stop solution for this, because you might end up slowing down on the steroids, which is what I did, and I did it several times, but over a 3-4 month period, and your body might not be ready to start producing the amount that you're not taking orally, and then you can have issues. So you've got to do it slowly. But as far as side effects, I remember driving in a car afterwards, and I was on a high dose. 60 milligrams is pretty much like the highest dose that's recommended or prescribed. And driving up to a stop sign, there's a car in front of me, and my wife's like, "Stop!" Because your depth perception, I guess, gets tweaked out, and I was nearly hitting cars daily, and I've been driving for 15 years, had no accidents or anything. So that's one thing. You also get what's called moon face. You can Google that online, type in steroid moon face.
Moon face.
Yeah, it's people's faces blow up big. And I've got some images of some photos of that were taken.
That happened to you?
Mildly, but yeah, and you can, if you saw a picture of me then compared to now, you'd say, whoa. Like, you just get puffy, retaining water and so forth. Sleeping at night, forget about it. You're up all night. It's almost like speed as well. Never done that, but I'm guessing. So also common side effect of steroids, prednisone, is people put on a lot of weight. Eating all the time, and all kinds of stuff, but you can't stay on it forever. It does help the symptoms, but once you get off them, often the symptoms come right back. So it's this death spiral of, catch-22.
And did the doctor tell you this, or what questions did you have after, like, what was going through your head at that time?
Yeah, I had a ton of questions, right? And so, with this disease, and I think this is common for a lot of people with UC, is, when you're at home, you've got a lot of questions, and you're waiting for that next doctor visit to go in and ask these questions. And then, and I learned this early on, once you get into the doctor's office, doctors, all doctors are different, right? And all your questions that you've had for the past week, they're gone. You can't think of anything. Doctor tells you something, and often they don't have lots of time to sit and be with you for a long time.
Yeah, they just talk and leave.
They come in for a couple minutes, and then they're out.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man, I got none of my questions answered. So I started writing down my questions on a piece of paper, bringing them in, and not letting them leave until we went through my questions. And I recommend that to everybody. But
writing down your questions
for the doctor.
But just in general, this is kind of how you turn this thing around, is by documenting this whole process. Is that correct?
Exactly. So for me, one of my big issues was I was having side effects of, some of the medications that I was given. And I went a full year after being diagnosed, call it 11 months, just about a year, of going from prednisone steroids to Asacol. Asacol is a maintenance, long-term, take it your whole life type of drug. It's basically like glorified aspirin. Mm-hmm. So prednisone to Asacol to Colazol to sulfasalazine, these are all kind of low-level on the pyramid medications. After that, I went to Remicade, which is a biologic. You get an infusion, suppresses your immune system. And it does work for some people. It didn't work as a long-term solution for me. Actually, funny story, I remember when I went and got my first Remicade infusion, and Remicade is like a blockbuster drug. This thing was like a massive hit, still is, multi-billion dollars a year. It's used for several different diseases, arthritis, so forth. Anyway, within 24 hours of getting my first Remicade infusion, I thought I was cured. I had a normal poop for the first time in over a year. And I was blown away. And I was like, wow, my colon can work again.
Did you think you were completely fine after that?
I was calling up. I've got a good buddy who's an immunologist, and his dad as well teaches at Stanford Immunology. And I called him up and said, hey, Jake, dude, this is like the most amazing thing ever. And he knew all about this drug. He'd been studying it for years. He's like, yeah, it's powerful as hell, man. Anyways, with that, it was take your first dose, your first infusion, and then I believe it was 2 or 4 weeks later, go back for another. And before I went back, symptoms started coming back. Got my second infusion. It did almost nothing positive. And then the third infusion, nothing at all. And so they decided, nope, stop this, because it was, I think, $8,000-$9,000 per infusion. Wow. Insurance was paying for it at the point. But anyways, I think I missed your question.
I was talking about the larger point about how you documented your experience. So
I'm getting another medication afterwards called Humira. You can also Google that thing all you want, and you'll see it's a multi-billion-dollar drug from a company called Abbott. And this was a shot you take, also a immune suppressant type drug, biologic. And I started having major joint issues. I couldn't move my arms at all, and my skin started peeling off my arms and my legs, and I was just like, whoa, this is worse than the disease itself. Mm-hmm. Talking to doctors, and I was getting all kinds of mixed ideas. It was a new medication. It actually wasn't even approved for ulcerative colitis. It had been approved for Crohn's disease at the time. It is now. Uh-huh. And so there wasn't many UC patients like myself taking Humira. So I was getting different answers. I went to UCSF up in San Francisco. I went to Palo Alto Medical Foundation. I went to Stanford. I went also and flew out to the Mayo Clinic in Arizona. These are like top of the line medical foundations all over the U.S. And I was getting all kinds of different answers. My question was, hey, I stopped taking this stuff. When are the side effects going to go away? And the answers were all over the place, from they're never going to till they should already be gone to I got no idea because I'd never seen this before. So I'd known a little bit about websites, because I'd worked for a company that was involved with website stuff back in the Silicon Valley area. So I figured, heck, I'll take some pictures. I'll put this stuff up on the internet. Maybe somebody else will find this stuff who's dealt with the same thing, and maybe they'll let me know when this stuff's going to go away or get better, these side effects.
So it all started with a forum.
Exactly.
Basically.
Trying to meet somebody else that can, give me an idea, because I wasn't getting any of I wasn't really getting any concrete answers whatsoever from, the physicians I was seeing. So yeah, that's how it started. And then kind of this turned into something I never intended, where I had written a little bit more of my story. And at this point, I was off medications and treating my UC with diet. And I'd met another girl in my area who had the same disease and tried the same medications and started treating her UC with diet as well. Mm-hmm. And when I met her, I was about 30, 40 pounds less than I am right now, and getting ready for surgery and sitting on the couch all, like that. And she comes over, this 22, 23-year-old blonde girl, looking perfect and like athletic, just got done doing a half marathon. And I said, oh, come on in here and tell me what I'm doing wrong. And anyway, it was pretty amazing. It was the first time I'd met somebody in person, which is a life-changing event for anybody that has a disease, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So, she said I just changed my diet, stopped eating a whole bunch of things. So speed this up a tiny bit, change what I was eating. I put that down on this website. Still had some of these side effect issues, and people started finding the website. I don't know how, and asking questions. It was a type of website you can post questions on there and so forth, and that's how it began.
Let me ask you a question. In the whole time that you were going to these doctors, did anyone talk to you about your diet or nutrition? Were the doctors mentioning this stuff to you as well?
It's a good question, and it was one of my first questions was right after I was diagnosed, what should I be eating? And they said, some of them said, you can eat whatever you want. The diet has no part in this disease.
And these are gastroenterologists that are telling you this.
Gastro doctors, GI doctors, yeah. And also there was some mention to me, eat low residue food, white bread and, like chicken soup, stuff like, that, but white bread was definitely something on the list.
What is residue? Can you define?
Some stuff that's easy to digest. Things like that. So I thought, okay, great, and that's what I listened to. And funny enough, all along too, family and friends were like, well, maybe you should, watch what you're eating or this. And then, no, my doctor's telling me I can eat whatever I want. So, and it's an emotional time. You're dealing with side effects. You're on new medications. You're seeing the doctors all the time. I'm getting blood tests all the time. My symptoms are going from extremely severe to not so bad, and I think I'm getting better, and then boom, right back. And emotionally and mentally, you're up and down, and you sometimes don't want to hear anything from other people trying to help you. But yeah, that's how it went. I really didn't get any advice that helped as far as diet advice. I was taking the advice from doctors that symptoms were staying the same or getting worse.
So their approach was giving you pills.
Oh yeah, and it wasn't just pills. It was hardcore medications that were infusions in the infusion center where you
$9,000 infusions.
You go in for 4 hours and you get that, and then ultimately it turned to it's been a year, man, and these medications aren't working. So surgery is where you need to go. And I remember meeting with the head GI doctor up at UCSF, which is a highly distinguished medical deal, especially on the gastro side. And he referred me to a colorectal surgeon, which is a surgeon that removes your colon. And right after that is when I met this girl. So, who told me there's another way if you want to give it a try. So yeah, anyways, I started a website. Now I want to give you guys a little. Do you want to hear some stories about that?
Definitely. Yeah, tell us about some of the people you've helped.
Okay, sure. So I started a website. It's called IHaveUC.com. I have letter U, letter C for ulcerative colitis.com. And again, it started because I wanted to get some help from some people. And it had turned into, over the years now, it's been almost 10 years or 8-9 years up and running, where over 3 million people have used the website from every single country in the world. And it's a place for people to share their story. I call it the colitis venting area, where people can write in how long they've been diagnosed for, how they got the disease, what questions they may or may not have, what kind of medications they're using. And I have a lot of stories up there as well, maybe over 100, 200 stories now that I've posted over the years, videos, whatnot, talking about the foods that I eat, things that have helped me, things that haven't. But, there's some ideas that no matter how you're going to treat your disease can help anybody with UC and heck, many, many, many other diseases as well, or medical problems. So I'll give you some examples. It's a very lonely time for somebody when they are, before they're diagnosed, but definitely once you're diagnosed with a disease such as ulcerative colitis. It's lonely. People don't walk around the street with the signs saying, hey, I have UC. Do you? No, people don't do that, right? And you can't easily go to places, so the internet's a great spot for that. And a recommendation I have is, as difficult as it is, try to communicate with other people. And if you can find ways to communicate in person, all the better. Because once you meet somebody who has the same disease that you have, it's like you're meeting a little member of your tribe. You know, different than your parents, than your brother, your sister. This is someone that's dealing with something that only you know about and they know about, and you probably dealt with a lot of the same exact things. Everything might be not the exactly the same, but a lot of the issues. And when I had met, you know, this girl for the first time, it was a life-changing event, and I've met many, many people with UC since then through this website, and also in person through this website. But there's organizations that you can join. There's all kinds of groups on Facebook that you can check into and look at, for that matter. But meet people. Another thing is educate yourself about the disease and what's going on in the medical world, the scientific world. And there's a great resource that anybody can use if you have the internet. It's called PubMed.
PubMed.
PubMed.com.
PubMed. I think it might be .gov, but if you if you type in PubMed on any search engine, you'll get there. And it's something from the National Institute of Health. It's kind of governed by the United States, and it is a listing of all of the published medical studies. And there's all types of things. There's studies for medications that are going through clinical trials. Also, there's studies that are published for medications after they have, medications gone through the clinical trial phase. Now it's been authorized and it's in use and marketed. So post-marketing studies, all types of...
what about non-conventional types of medicines?
Just going to get to that. Non-conventional type of treatments and medicines. For example, this is something that's typically not talked about by your doctor the first time you go in, but something that is relatively new in the Western world, but it's been going on for many, many, many years in some other parts of the world, is a treatment that's kind of nasty to talk about, but it's literally fecal transplants, which is taking poop from somebody who is, let's say, healthy, and getting that up into your colon.
Say introducing
it, exactly. And this is done through an enema. There's been a lot of people talking about this for several different types of situations. There's a lot of studies published, documented, about using fecal transplants for something called C. diff or C. difficile. It's a very nasty bacteria that a lot of people, and especially people with UC, are more prone to it. I've had it a couple times and used antibiotics to treat it. But fecal transplants for this particular situation, C. diff, and the symptoms are darn near the same as UC, is 90+% effective, which there's not too many medications on the world that are 90% effective for serious diseases or things that people come down with. So anyway, the fecal transplants, the idea behind it is based off of gut bacteria, which we all have. And that's a whole long discussion. You can get someone about gut bacteria to talk about that someday, much smarter than I am. But the fecal transplants, poop, introduce that into your colon, and it can start to grow, or spur, different colonies, different bacteria strains of, healthy, good bacteria, which we all need and everybody has. And it works out for some people. So you can read about that on PubMed too.
Is it something that you have tried or are willing to try?
I have not tried. I have definitely thought and considered. And you know what? I would not at all rule it out as something that I may very well try sometime in the future. I've emailed with many, many people on the IBC site who have used this successfully. Some people, it has not been successful. The reality is there's just not a single treatment that works for everybody. Heck, even surgery. Surgery is, kind of published and thought of as the end-all, last resort. But, for some people with surgery, and this is really scary and unfortunate, there's a small percentage, they get surgery, and they have a whole bunch of complications after. But it's a small percentage. But the point is, there's many treatments. Not everything works for everyone, and finding what works for you, that's the goal. And it's possible.
And but you're a big believer in diet as being one of the most effective ways to control UC, right?
For me, it's been great, and I've noticed that if I remove a lot of different things from my diet, it's been very beneficial. And I went for many, many years without drinking alcohol. I used to drink beer. I used to drink everything: wine,
after diagnosis.
Whiskey. After diagnosis, cut this stuff out. I wasn't in the mood to drink when I was super, super sick. But definitely once I started changing my diet based off of ideas that this girl had introduced me to. And it's all removing a lot of things like on the grains, a lot of dairy, a lot of sugars, and kind of going back to more of a fruits and vegetable type of lifestyle really helped me quite a bit.
And what about meats? Can people eat meats? After, yeah.
And I would say I follow a plan where there's a lot of meat involved daily. Fish, poultry, beef, you name it on that end, I'm pretty much eating it. But
is there a logic behind that? Why meat would be important for someone with UC, or for you, I guess specifically?
Yeah, the kind of thinking behind this is on this particular type of diet that I follow. Again, it has to do with gut bacteria. So everybody puts things in their mouth or drinks things, and what comes out, that's not always the same for everyone. So our bodies, when they're digesting things, do things a little bit differently. Everyone's got a different digestive system, every single person on the planet. So meat, vegetables, I do a pretty good job at bringing that in, do a really good job of that, and then digesting things properly. So gut bacteria that's in my body is, it's able to deal with that and digest properly. And there's different strands of bacteria in our body, and some strands that are, let's say, negative or harmful, we want to keep those in a low population. You don't want that army of the negative bacteria growing, because from my perspective, and again, not everyone in the Western medicine world is going to agree with this. This is kind of
it's just you, Adam.
Which side do you want to think about? It's the gut bacteria that are the nasty guys. If I'm not digesting things properly, let's say like breads, that ends up turning into food for this ugly bacteria that blow up in population and then spark the immune system. And it's just a constant, never-ending battle.
So for anybody who's diagnosed with UC or any sort of digestive tract disease, would you say it's good advice that they treat their body like something to experiment on and eat different things and maybe write it down, see how...
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I mean, everybody's going to be a little bit different. And not everybody has unbelievable results with changing their diet the way that I do. But I can assure you there's many, 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 many people, massive amount of people that have had positive results. And the results may vary. Just like with any medication that has ever been prescribed to anybody in the history of the world that has UC. Results are not always the same, and no doctor can tell you how you're going to react. But just what you said, keeping track, and it's difficult. You got to spend time and effort. You got to bring a pen and paper or maybe your telephone and keep track of what you've been eating. And if you can limit down, my advice is, don't eat a whole wide range of things. Try to bring that down to a few items for 3-4 days. It's not going to be exciting and wild and amazing, big variety, but bring that down. Track how you're feeling throughout the days, and you, over time, will probably have a pretty good shot without knowing any dieting rules, what's working good and what's not working good for you. And again, it takes time and results sometimes. You can't expect to change your diet for one day and then the next day things are going to be better, because it's not going to happen. This takes some time.
I understand you've written a book about a special diet or something like that. Can you tell us about what you've written?
After, when I started this website, there was a couple people going to the website, let's say every day, and then it turned into something where there was 100 people, 200 people, 500 people, 1,000 people going to this website, and I would get a lot of emails from people. And they were asking all types of questions. Emails from moms, emails from grandparents, emails from boyfriends, emails from people that have the disease themselves, and all types of questions. And I didn't have enough time in the day to respond. So I figured, you know what? I'll quit my job and I'll write a book. It took a half a year, and I wrote a pretty detailed book about before my diagnosis, during, and then as well after. And I additionally wrote a cookbook. And I'm not some crazy chef, I'm just some average Joe here, but I know how to turn the stove and the oven on and the barbecue, and I know how to make up some pretty decent meals. So yeah, I made a kind of a biography of my life and different tips on kind of going about things and really what the reality is like, and then a cookbook on some simple recipes of things that have worked well for me. And people have read these from over 50 countries in the world.
And they just need to go to your website to get the book?
Yeah, the website's, if you go to the IBC.com site, on just about every single page that's there, you can access, the link to learn more about the book and so forth. Yeah, it's digital book, ebook, PDF, and EPUB book. You can read on phone, you can read on a computer, you can read on a tablet, and it's a lot of people think it's pretty good.
In this disease, and I guess this is a question for anybody who has a serious disease like this, how much of the healing process is psychological?
A lot. It's a mental positive. It's a mental battle, and sometimes it's a mental battle every day, all day long, especially with you can call it a chronic disease or a lifelong disease, or a disease that's here to stay with you. Even if you're in remission, even when I'm in remission, at the end of the day, if someone asks me, "Hey, do you have disease?" Oh yeah, I do. I've got this thing, UC. And sometimes I don't think about it at all. Sometimes I don't think about it for months. But it is a mental battle, and the biggest battle that I think a lot of people deal with is when they're having symptoms. It's when you're having symptoms and it's right in your face. The second you walk into the bathroom and you see what's going on, especially if there's bleeding. And bleeding is just this thing that, it's negative. It's not a positive. People don't like bleeding anywhere. Especially from inside of you. It's not what you want. So when and there's no silver bullet answer again for how to deal with this. Everyone deals with this a bit differently, but I think for me, and there's always a chance that I'm going to have awful symptoms sometime that come up in the future for I'm not sure which reason, but I've also had this happen in the past, knowing that, hey Adam, your body is pretty damn smart. This thing's been developed over thousands and thousands of years, and I've gone from being very sick with horrible symptoms, lost a lot of weight and weak, to feeling as good as I've ever felt in my whole life after. And you know what? You've done that before, you're going to do it again. And believing in that, if you can just believe in that, that'll get you a long way. And additionally, knowing that you're not the only person. You might be the only person on your block. You might be the only person in your school. You might be the only person at your work that's dealing with this disease and these symptoms that maybe, as much as you talked about it to other people, no one can really understand. But there's a lot of other people in the world with UC, with inflammatory bowel disease, that are dealing with the exact same thing right now, just like you are. And knowing you're not alone with this, I think that's a pretty positive thing to mentally get through. Because if you're dealing with something and you're the only one in the whole world, I got a feeling that's probably pretty tough. And there's some people that have diseases which there's only 2 or 3 people in the world that have. Not the case with UC. There's many, many people. And chances are, for people that are diagnosed with UC, they've probably even met somebody in their life. They just don't know it because people don't talk about it. And, once you start talking about it a little more, opening up with your friends and family and just being honest and talking about it more, you'll realize there's more people. And that actually brings me up to another question on how much should you talk about this disease with your work? We've done a lot of surveys on the IBC site, and one of them's like a work survey, one of them's like an exercise survey, one of them's how you know you're getting into a flare-up survey, how do you get out of one, relationship survey, how do you deal with relationships in UC,
pretty much
so
every
forth.
situation you can think of with this disease.
Exactly. And my advice for everyone, and maybe I'm just a real open person, but I think it's helped me out a lot, is to be open with it. Anybody can ask me anytime, any questions they want about this disease. And, maybe it's because I've written a book about it and published that, but I would like to think, had I not, come and ask me any questions you want. I'll tell you.
What was it embarrassing in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's been so long, it's hard to remember some of those things. But
yeah, if you could take us, through the evolution of like your thoughts and like your feelings about the disease, from diagnosis and until now, like what have you learned?
My first year after being diagnosed, going back there again, and it was a dark time. It was the darkest time of my life. My mom thought I was gonna die. There was times where I thought I might not wake up in the morning. Where I'm sitting on the toilet and I fall over because I'm just about ready to pass out from being so exhausted and anemia. And I can remember kind of getting in the bed, and then all of a sudden I've got a crazy fever and shaking, and I couldn't stop shaking. I'm extremely sick and tired, and I remember thinking to myself, there's a chance I don't wake up in the morning. But what was your question again?
Just your evolution of like your thoughts and feelings from when you were diagnosed until, like, just take us through just the years of having this,
Yeah. Well, so my thoughts and feelings from early days, how I was, thinking about how can I move forward, and when I didn't have I was still sick, symptoms were still there. I wasn't getting help going to the doctor. I really didn't want to see people. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows what to say to you. You've been sick, not just the last time you saw your grandpa or your mom or your brother, whoever you haven't seen maybe in a while, or some friends that maybe you don't see all the time. But it's like you're still sick. Mm-hmm. And if you go over to their house, you used to go over there and hang out and have fun, but now you go over there and you're like, man, I hope that if I go into the bathroom, and there might be some crazy sounds coming out of there, I hope your kids don't wake up, your 5-year-old kids, because if I was them, I'd probably be waking up. And I hope you guys don't mind if we sit down and watch a movie and I got to go take a poop 5 times throughout the movie. And gosh, all this type of stuff, just you want to being comfortable. It's not so easy when you're, let's say, out in public when you're dealing with symptoms. So, kind of being a recluse and just, being at home. And also, if you're having symptoms, you're probably very tired. Mm-hmm. And, that was definitely what was going on in my head. And dealing with constantly people trying to help you. It sounds crazy, right? But you've got family members that are all, going online and typing in stuff and seeing all these horror stories or this or that or who knows what. And, I heard, Frankie's grandma's daughter has UC, and they're doing this, and you're at a point where you're like, I don't care about anything.
You needed to meet other people who have been through it yourself.
Exactly.
That sounds like your turning point.
Exactly. I mean,
that's advice for everybody, right?
Everybody, I would say.
Go find people that are in your situation.
It may sound strange, like why do you want to find more people that have a disease?
Right.
But you know what? You're finding your tribe. And I assure you, it's a positive experience. And God forbid you meet some people that have a lot more experience with the disease than you, because there's people that have had this. Some people have had this disease and are living with it for 60 years. They're going to have a lot of information to share with you. And they're just a great source of information that, these people that have this disease are happy to talk about it with other people. It's no big deal. Mm-hmm. And it's a great thing. So yeah, exactly. That's what you need to do. It's an awesome experience for everybody, for parents as well. I mean, heck, boyfriends and girlfriends of people with UC, husbands, wives, they love being able to chat with other people that are husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, sisters, aunts, uncles, whatever, because heck, they're in the same boat too. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I think just to close out, someone who's just been diagnosed, with UC or something similar, what's something that you can tell that person?
It's probably the same thing I tell everyone, and that as much as the disease is something that will affect your life, it will in some ways, it's not the end of the world, and you can still do many, many things, if not everything, that you want to do. Don't think your life is done. Go and keep on shooting for your goals, because you can do it. Heck, look at me. I was diagnosed for several years. Afterwards, I went on a cross-country trip living in a Volkswagen van for a year and a half. 6 months out of that, my wife and I bought a sailboat and sailed down the East Coast out to the Bahamas. Just the two of us,
Nice.
going across the high seas. It was a good time. So yeah, it's not the end of the world.
Perfect. Adam, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming and
Thanks
talking
for having
to
me
us.
down, you guys.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Do This With Your Life. Now, I've got a question for you. Do you know anyone specifically that you think this episode could help? If so, please share this podcast with that person. The purpose of this show is to help people overcome challenges, solve problems, and take the next step in life. If you think that's a worthy cause, please visit our website, dothispodcast.com, and click on the button to become a patron of our show. Any little donation helps. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. There you can follow us, you can leave comments, ideas for future shows, and receive notifications every time we release an episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and remember, you are the reason we do this podcast.